G'day and welcome to Off-Grid Earth. We've been on the road almost 9 weeks now, and we've learned a few things along the way. There's a few stories to tell, and we've got some lessons with regard to the car and the van and all things travel. We've had a few people ask a few questions about how everything's going, so we thought we'd do an update. Now this update, it's an add-on from the Big Rig Part 1 and Part 2 that we did quite a number of weeks back. If you want to have a watch of that, feel free to do so, and this is just going to be a supplementary to that. We might try to do it all in one video. So we're here at Lee and Jenny's bush camp on the Daly River. It's a beautiful spot. Lee and Jenny are really amazing hosts. If you're coming through this way, get out and have a look. Really awesome, and it can be great fishing if you're here at the right time. Although this year is the worst in 60 years, terrible wet season and not many fish, unfortunately for us. So we're going to start with the car and make a few comments. Car has been going reasonably well. We had a 30,000 service a little while ago, and since then we've had a little bit of oil coming out of the diff breather, and that it can't be necessarily resolved by Ford. They haven't really been able to give me any answers. Other than that, the car's been towing really well. That's supposed to only really happen when you're in four-wheel drive and the diff gets hot. It's happening in two-wheel drive, so we'll see how that it plays out. But other than that, let's have a quick look at some of the things that we've done. We talked about the canopy last time, and look, if you've got the opportunity, if you've got the coin, get the biggest and strongest tow car that you can for the rig that you're going to be towing. If you can buy a Dodge Ram, buy a Dodge Ram. We chose this car because we could still it was an automatic. We could still tow in relative luxury, and it has good low down torque, and things have to give when you've got budgets. And we probably could have got a better fabbed canopy. This canopy's been going well, but it has got a few now cracks developing in corners, which I've just taped to keep water and dust out, because there's not much you can do with welded aluminium. So just bear that in mind, and obviously spend what you can with your budgets. But with cars and with caravans, you can easily spend $150, $180, $200,000 plus when you're setting up. So you really have to try to balance that. Still really happy with everything. In here also, we didn't get slide outs and drawers and everything in here, and this is sort of the way we set it up, and we've got our little system in here, and it works well for us. I can chuck my rods in. When we're traveling, the rods are up here. Things get moved about. We have a little bit of a reset every now and then, and it works well. But if you want that little bit more formality, or perhaps if you aren't traveling with children, you've got less gear, you might like to have your shelves and your lights and everything set up. But each to their own in that department. One of the things that we haven't done and probably will do and have been thinking about is just getting a little bladder. You can buy bladders, and it's really handy when you just come back from fishing or whatever else to have probably a little tap built in somewhere. And we don't have that, but something as simple as just having a camelback hung up. You come back, you can just get your camelback going and just wash your hands. So you don't even really need to buy anything specialty, but that sort of stuff can make a big difference when you've got sort of sand and fishy fingers and bits and pieces like that. So that's just a couple of little tips on that. Also, this car came with aftermarket tyres, or we bought it from the dealer with these rims, and these tyres are 20-inch. These 20-inch rims may be part of the reason why the diff has been getting hot, although we did lots of towing for within the first 30,000 and never saw a sign of it. So we're still not sure, but the comments could be around the different wheel sizing. It may be safer. It might not look as good, but it might be safer to just stay with your steel standard rims and relatively standard tyres. Just a comment there on some of our lessons in that department. Okay, so since our last update, there's a couple more things we've done. Got a self-fire booster and also two aerials, one for the car and one for the van, and had that installed so that when we're in marginal areas, we can sort of be on the fringe of things, and as long as you've got a bar, it'll boost it. It has worked really quite well in a lot of cases. We've only had it a few weeks, but it's helpful. So you can get these. They're about, by the time we had the two aerials and the unit, $1,300 probably ish installed. So worth that, and there's a lot more people getting around with them now, but they can interrupt other places that have their own fixed booster. as in Lee and Jenny's bush camp. So if you come into certain places, it's best not to have them on. Okay, we'll move on to the van. With regard to our trail, we'll be commenting on vans generally, but with the trail, this has been really good. This has been an awesome van, continues to be. A few little glitchy things, but we really can't complain, and we put it through its paces. If you're going to have a bike rack up the front, which we've done here, which has worked pretty well, you probably don't need your window because you're barely ever going to get to use it, so you could probably just do away with that. Also, there are a type of bike rack that allow the bikes to hang vertically off the back. We met some people along the way who we became mates with, and they had those racks. A mob in Melbourne makes them, so if you prefer to get them up and down a little bit easier, there is a rack that hangs from the back of the van. You know, obviously we'll keep this one now, but that could be something that you might want to consider if you've got 4 or 5 bikes and you want easy access. Some other things that we've done, because it's a big van and there was a fair bit of weight, it tows really well. The van tows plumb and everything was beautiful, but I wanted to take a little bit of weight off and put it into the front of the car. So we've got the big Cayman Reese weight distribution system. All right, these are pretty common these days. We got the sort of most heavy duty one you can get, and these will, you know, lock into the van, and they hitch up onto this, and they put some weight into the front of the car. Helps with the ride, helps with the travel in the front suspension. And for a heavy rig with tow ball weight, it's probably a way to go. Other people, if they're traveling light, if you're not traveling with children with all the extra gear, or you're not traveling as long and you've got a light van, you may not need one. It can actually be more dangerous for some people to take weight off the tow ball. So bear that in mind and make sure you investigate that thoroughly. The Boss jockey wheel so far has been going really well. I'm glad we got that. Saves so much time. Just being able to get the drill out and just plug that in and wind it up and down. Up, so quick, so easy. Definitely recommend that one. Okay, this barbecue slide has been really good, and it does the job quite well. There is some guys that I've seen who have had these upgraded through some of the dealers, and they have got the sort of a Weber barbecue built into here as well. So you might want to consider that. I think we'll persevere with this. It's working fine, but you can sort of make it cooler if you wanted to. A few other comments with regard to the van. We might just pop in quickly. I'm trying to move through this quickly so that we don't, everyone's time is valuable. Absolutely was important. I'll just turn this light on. The Combi heater that we've got under here is awesome. Okay, so we've gone through all sorts of conditions, warm and cold, and that or a good diesel heater is a must. And as you know from our last update, you can get a heater for the car, for the caravan, through Trail New South Wales from Chris if you mention Off-Grid Earth. So that's a bonus. But they have been really, really awesome. I don't think you can get away with traveling in cold areas without something to heat the van. They do it really, really quickly. So a couple of important things to do with, I think, the toilet, and we might comment on the composting toilet because we had quite a few people asking about that. Now, we didn't show you in it last time because obviously you've been using it. This time it's clean, and so I'm just going to take us on a bit of more of a tour of how this works. So you put a peat block in here, you wet it up, and then that starts a composting process when you start going to the loo. Now, what it looks like in here is basically this, which is compost at the moment, and obviously then that fills up as you're doing your poos, and you turn it with this handle on the side, okay, and that just turns everything through. Now, we found that with 5 of us, and we used it full time for about 6 or 7 weeks, that we were changing it just before about the 3 week mark, 2.5 to 3 week mark. Now, the wee bottle at the front here, we basically worked out you should change it just about every day. And even if you had less in there, you should change it every day, because once it gets older, it can get stale and it can get smelling and bacteria. So that's best done every day. When you change it over, I haven't filmed that process, but you can just undo the whole toilet here from the side. You lift it up, you can just even slide it along and you take it out, the whole lid here unclips, and then you're just left with what's inside. You can put a heavy duty plastic bag over it, you just invert it, that all falls into the bag, a couple of taps, and then it's all in the bag. Now it's something you're only doing every 2.5, 3 weeks, probably longer if there's only 2 of you or 3 of you, and I would rather do that any day than having to deal with going and emptying cassettes sort of every 2-3 days or whatever it might be. It's allowed us to do a lot more free camping and stay, you know, out in the sticks for longer. So I'm still very happy with the composting toilet. Now there is something that to be aware of though, and that is that this thing is constantly drawing with a 12-volt fan through that toilet to draw the air through and to create those processes of decomposition. And that fan exits underneath the van. Now it doesn't smell bad outside, but you can smell a composting smell at times. And if I had my time over, now that I know, you would swap the arrangement in here so that this toilet is on the opposite side to your living area in the van, or otherwise you would have that plumbed to the other side of the van to move that further away. It really depends on how the wind is moving or the breeze is blowing, but having it right there, I have noticed it on a number of occasions where you can have that smell, and it's not a bad smell, it's not a septic smell, but it's still there. Inside you never smell it at all. So that's probably a good rundown on a composting toilet. I would definitely recommend it. I'll just change the way that it vents. With regard to the kids' bunks, everything in here's been going beautifully. These TV units, they're handy. They probably, I would do it differently and try to get the highest quality unit. They're a little bit hard to interface with. One of them's gone on the blink, and they're not a bad unit, but I think it could be done a little bit, maybe we could do a little bit better there. You would also, our kids use iPads as well as the TV. Some people don't have these anymore, they just got iPad mounts, but I would be setting up, you know, plenty of room for their storage up in here for the iPads, and, you know, as well as having this, but each to their own in that department as well. Okay. With regard to the TV and the setup with this unit and the head unit around here, which runs those TVs in the kids' bunks, does music, and this links into this TV as well. But where it doesn't link into is outside where the TV port is. So you can't put a show on here and have it run outside via USB. You could get that included in your van, absolutely, for sure. We bought a data projector that we can run little TV nights outside onto a screen, and it would be more handy to be able to run the USB connection from this unit from outside rather than having to run it through the van. So we've learnt that lesson as well. While we're down in this area, we had a 240, a 12 volt to 240 projector. It's a 2000 watt continuous rating. It's been very good, but one of the things that happened, and it was very busy leading up to when we're leaving, we had time pressure, so some things went through to the keeper. All the power in the van runs through this, so even when we connected to 240 at a caravan park, we've got a 2000 watt continuous rating limit, which has been on a couple of occasions when you've got the air conditioning going, you might want to run a stovetop. It's sent off the alarm. We're going to get that rectified. Trail are going to get that sorted for us by putting in a bypass, an isolator, or a switch, a bypass switch, so that we can switch over to having it running directly through the van. Now, that, you know, that could go either way. That might come as standard in some, but just be mindful of little things like that, because this was plenty of power to be running if we're running off grid and running for the batteries, but it just so happened that it was wired in such a way that it actually can be limiting when you're connected to power. The Redarc battery management system, I'm a bit neither here nor there on that. Redarc are a big name, but this unit here for a long time didn't really even give us much of a reading on our lithium batteries. Then they sort of went up to 100%, and I don't think I've seen them anywhere other than 99 or 100%, even when the battery's getting down. It doesn't read a percentage for some reason at any other state of charge, which I found annoying and frustrating, so I don't even know what the point of it is. So we've had to keep a close eye on our voltage. Now the voltage is displayed over here in the trail vans. Now it's showing 13.4, 13.5 there now. That's pretty sort of standard. But lithium is a bit funny in the way that it reacts. We've noticed that sometimes you can show a fairly high voltage, but it can start to move down quickly in the evening, and that's a telltale sign that your battery doesn't have charge. So, you know, we've had a few times where we've got very close to dropping out on the lithium, and a couple of times where we've dropped out. So we've learnt now that can be because of the situation of it's showing voltage, showing high voltage, but your battery actually isn't at a full state of charge. And you can sort of reference that by the amount that you've been doing and the amount of sort of solar input that's come in during the day. But it's probably different for every van. My comment on the lithium is that you probably want to go with the highest grade lithium, again, that you can afford. We've got 300 amp hours, that's great. Like if I had my time over, you'd probably try to put more in. It's not going to hurt to have 500, 600. Similarly with the solar, we've got 450 watts of solar. If I had my time over again, we probably ran out of time and we had to go with what the dealer allowed us, but you can get higher wattage panels now, quite high. And I would be pushing to try to get 700, 800, 1,000 watts of solar up there. It's not going to go astray. You can use it quite easily when you've got mobile phones charging, you've got laptops or multiple laptops charging. You've got all sorts of bits and pieces. There can be quite a lot of load, and if you're not connected and you sat up for a few days at a campsite and you get poor conditions, and you're in winter, and you know it's flat to the roof, you know it's not tilted up like on houses, you know that extra output is going to be advantageous. So you know get as much up there as you can would be my comment, and with the highest quality, so that you don't have any problems with solar failing. Now inside, there were some things that sort of went through to the keeper. One of the things was this we're supposed to have pockets up in here. We forgot to sort of follow that through, and it didn't happen. Some other folk have had this actually changed out to have pockets, some people that we've met. And so if you do that, it's sort of a good space to do things with. Get some 12 volt and USB connection areas up in here, and you can put your phones and other bits and pieces up here as charging points. That was a pretty good thing. Thanks to these Wonder Days, and they confirmed what I'd already thought about having that as a good space. These pelmets, sort of little edges on the pelmets have come in really handy as well. The vitamin section over here, but you could also have these with charging points to put stuff up in those if you prefer as well. Sirocco fans, invaluable. Do not get a caravan without them. We're running them all the time, and it's been really good. Now, this brings me to a point about fly screens in caravans. Now, as far as I understand, fly screens in caravans do not keep bugs out. So you've got midges, but you also get big moths and mosquitoes. And they can come up, and it seems that they can come up and around or come around the sides. In normal conditions, you might not get anything. So you could be in a city or in a sort of just a fairly standard spot. If you go out into a remote area and you're the only light source around, you can just be hammered. And if you're out at places like Kakadu, we've had the situation where, you know, wintering with, you know, you think you're going to be fine, and next thing you know, you're like, where are these bugs coming from? And they're getting in. So you can get brushes that you can put on after the fact that are supposed to assist in that. So look into that. You might even ask your dealer. However, the easiest way to get around it is people just go woof and pull everything up and they lock themselves in. But if it's a bit warm and you're off grid, it can be cooling down outside and it can be still quite warm inside. So what we've resorted to doing is this fan in the bathroom actually blows nice cool air in from outside. So we leave that on all night and it blows air into the space for the kids in those sort of situations. However, at the other end of the van, it can be the case that, you know, you're not getting enough, it's not enough airflow. So the suggestion would be there to actually get one of those type of fans in this part of your van. A roof-based vent of some description. Shouldn't be too hard. We may do it, we're managing fine now. But if in your build you can add it in somewhere here or wherever, so you can draw some cool air in. And if you have to lock everything up to keep the bugs out, you can still be drawing that cooler air in. So that's just some things to keep in thought processes there. Okay, so we have our selfie unit, which isn't on at the moment, up in here. I haven't got around to actually getting some hooks for it, but we move this unit. This unit sits in the car or here, depending on where we need boosted phone signal, and we prefer to have it off if we don't need it, of course, but it can be helpful. So that's where we've had ours installed, and your aerial has to be somewhat removed. Your internal aerial needs to be somewhat removed from the external aerial. Okay, so another thing to bear in mind is your TV signal, and we've pretty much had no signal the whole time. We had this little booster, and that's actually quite a good booster, but you have to be sort of really within the proximity of the city to get that to work. So satellite dish all the way if you want to watch telly. In fact, we don't really want to watch telly. It's not that much of a problem. We've adapted to it, but sort of missing the cricket has annoyed me a little bit, and probably the odd fishing show or maybe a few bits and pieces. So it could be handy, but you know, we sort of forgot about it being so busy it hasn't really mattered. But if you want to watch telly, pretty much going to have to organise some sort of satellite dish, whether it sits on the roof, whether it sits on the ground, but TV signal all but useless. Right. Okay, so we've covered off a fair bit of ground. Probably these are things that are coming from someone who's in a learning experience, and there may be things that are helpful to other people who might be about to embark on a similar journey. It's not comprehensive by any means. We can probably talk for an hour, and there's more bits and pieces to cover off, but we've already got a really robust van, and if you watch the first two videos, the features are great. I can't praise this van enough for the strength of it. Structurally, it's been really, really good. So it's just the little things that could be done a little bit better, and it's not even to do with the manufacturer. I think it's just a standard comment on the way vans are. So whether you're buying a trail or buying something else, these are things you might want to keep in mind. If you do buy a trail, Chris's number in Trail New South Wales, 0414 565 806. Chris is great. He'll really help you out, and I'd encourage you to get in touch with those guys to have a chat about vans before you make a purchase on your van, because these are extremely good value. So remember to do that. Okay. All right. I think we're covered. So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully it's been a valuable use of your time. Thanks for watching. And it's over and out from Off Grid Earth.